Everyone, I'm going to ask that we turn off or silence all cell phones or electronic devices. Thank you very much.
To those gathered here in the chapel and those joining us on the live stream, for Bruchim Habayim and welcome. Today, we honor the life of Melvin Edelstein, a man who lived fully into his 90s. When I spoke yesterday with his friend and neighbor Joy, who lived across the street, she told me that each and every morning she'd look out the window to see if Mel's car was still there, noting how active he was right up until the last few days of his life. And Mel, I came to understand, was cherished by his family and his friends. A proud veteran who will receive military honors later on when we process to Locustwood Memorial Park for interment. He was a husband, a partner, and a friend. Now, I admit I didn't know Mel in life, though I imagine our paths must have crossed at some point at the JCC, where I learned he would spend most of his days for many years working out, probably more than I did. And while I didn't know him, I spent time speaking with some friends and family members who did, who shared with me about the man that Mel was. And I learned a number of things. I learned that he, earlier in life, was a talented gardener. I learned about his love for his wife, Gay, of blessed memory, and his son, Jason, of blessed memory. I learned about the way that he stood by his partner, Irene, helping to take care of her for 5 years, visiting her, sending her love notes, going out with her, and the like. I learned about the way that Mel and Joy and Butch on their street all came to depend on one another in the neighborhood, looking out for one another, taking one another to appointments, sharing meals together. I learned a little about his career in printing and so much more, but you'll hear from those who loved him and knew him in life more intimately in just a few moments. But today, we set our intention, our kavanah, on raising up the best attributes of Melvin Edelstein, Moshe ben Yisrael, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. Jewish tradition teaches that while the physical body is temporary, the soul is eternal, without end. So today, we gather for sacred purpose. We pray for full and complete rest for Mel's body. And as he's laid to rest in a bit at Locustwood alongside Gay and Jason, his soul remains bound to the bond of life, and that is to each of you, and we seek blessing for the continued elevation of his soul. It's my prayer that our time together today have purpose and deep meaning, and that it may honor Mel's memory well, who passed away just a few short days ago. My name is Rabbi Nathan Weiner. I'm the Director of Jewish Outreach and Engagement at the Jewish Federation of Southern New Jersey and their family of agencies. And it's an honor in representation of myself and my family, the Federation system, and the Jewish people to be present with each of you here today. So Mel, as I mentioned, was the loving husband of Gay, of blessed memory, and father of Jason, of blessed memory. He's survived by his brother Gary and his girlfriend Diane, Gary's girlfriend Diane, his sister June and her husband Jerry, of blessed memory, and their children, Dana and Jay's wife Peggy. I pray I got every name correct. Good, okay. And many dear friends as well. May your love and care for one another, God willing, carry you through this difficult loss and transition. So today we have two mitzvot, two commandments that we are seeking to perform. First and foremost, we perform the mitzvah of kavod hamet, honoring the deceased. And that's what we've been doing since he passed through to our time together at Locustwood when we place earth, returning him to the earth. Following that, we participate in a mitzvah called Nichum Avelim, of comforting the mourners, as we form a community of consolation around them as they say mourners Kaddish for the first time and then make their way following that for meals and visits of consolation. May our time together be sacred, and may it be meaningful. And once again, may it honor Mel's memory well. It's customary at moments of loss and grief to recite Tehillim, Psalms. And I'm going to recite Psalm 23, one that's possibly familiar to many of you. It's universal, used universally across the Abrahamic faith traditions at moments of loss and grief. I'll read it first in Hebrew, followed by a standard translation in the English. If you're comfortable and would like to in either language, you're welcome to say it with me. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achsar, binoteshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglet tzedek laman shemo, gam ki elech b'getz al mavet lo irara ki atay imadi, shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorarai, Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen v'amen. From Kohelet, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which has been planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. A number of members of friends and family have offered to use this time for speaking. They offer words of a hesped, of a eulogy to raise up Mel's kavod, his honor and dignity. And we're first going to hear from his siblings. First, his sister June, followed by his brother Gary. June?
Thank you all for coming, too. Do I put this lower? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I got to put my glasses on, too. Well, I thought about what I wanted to say, and I started thinking about him because I thought, I'm probably, even though you've all known him for a long time, being the second sibling, I've known him longer than anybody else, so he was 5 years older than me. And I was going to tell you a lot of stories, and I thought, you know what, there's too much to say. So I like to write poetry, so I put something together that I hope expresses it. My dear brother Mel, he really was swell, and I'd like to tell you why. Shy he was not. He talked a lot, and once he got started and darted from topic to topic, from story to days of glory, some kind of gory, to women and opinion that could soon have you laughing and rolling on the floor. You'd want and wait for more and more. He was never a bore. He was kind, always spoke his mind. He loved to read. He loved sports, all sorts. He was truthful. He was loyal. Had good friends that he liked to spoil. He was rough. He was tough. Polite fluff was not enough for him. He knew how to listen, even tried kissing your worries away. He'd stay and say what you needed to hear, and then maybe hand you a beer. So, Mel, wherever your spirit is soaring or daring to go, you will always be loved and remembered, I want you to know. And so, my dear brother and friend, I hope when you move on and when I come into my own, we will lovingly meet again and all be happy again. I love you, Mel. Thank you. Maybe we can tell some stories later.
I'm Mel's brother, Gary, and I just wanted to say a few words. Well, of course, thank you all for coming. Sorry, can you hear me now? Thank you all for coming. Mel was born 9 years before me, so he was always my big brother. In many ways, he was larger than life to me, tall, handsome, and very much the coolest person I've ever known, especially when I was younger. You could say Mel was a cool James Bond type long before anybody ever heard of James Bond. He also had another side to him that was proud of his service in the Army and was a true patriot. He was a loving and caring husband to Geisha and a wonderful father to his son, Jason. He will always be loved and very much missed. Thank you.
Now invite his friend, Tanya Buckman.
Okay, if you can't hear me, just let me know. I just want to correct the rabbi. He was not a friend. He was part of our family. So I just want to thank everyone who helped Mel through this very rough period. Those that had the forethought to check on him, sat with him in the hospital, slept there all night so that he wouldn't be alone, and especially Carol Lupo, who always comes in these situations somehow, and John, who puts up with it. Mel was such a man's man, a Korean War vet, a no-nonsense guy. We only wish he had come into Irene's life 30 years earlier. One day, after Irene had a debilitating stroke, we walked into her apartment, and he was sweeping the apartment. But I'm going to tell you how they met. I remember one day Irene got all dressed up to go to the gym. All the women were after him. She and Mel talked, and she gave Mel her number. 2 weeks passed, and Mel didn't call. She saw him in the gym again and asked him why he didn't call. And he replied, "I lost your number." And she said, "That's an effing lie." And that was it. They were together forever after that. Mel, we love you. And we were indeed your family, and you were part of our family.
And Allie Kearsley to share some words.
Hi there. Oop, good? Okay. All right, so the majority of you in the room probably don't know me and my family, but we considered Mel a part of ours. So for as long as I can remember, every holiday and the occasional Sunday dinner had Mel and Gay with us. So he always brought light and humor to every gathering that we had. Mel always made it a point to take interest in our lives by asking what sports we were doing, any new jobs that we had, moving, all that sort of stuff. So my family and I are really going to miss him and our friend. Thank you.
And Joe to share some words.
Bear with me for a second. I'm not always too good at speaking. Get a little nervous. But I'm Joe. I'm Mel's friend. And I wanted to read a poem that made me think of Mel. And the name of the poem is The Train of Life. And before I get to reading it, though, Mel's family and everybody in this room, I just want to say I'm sorry for your loss, because it is a loss for all of us. At birth, we boarded the train and we meet our parents. We believe they will always travel by our side. However, at some stations, our parents will step down from the train, leaving us on the journey alone. As time goes by, other people will board the train, and they will be significant. Our siblings, friends, children, and even the love of our life. Many will step down and leave a permanent vacuum. Others will go unnoticed, and we don't even realize they vacated their seats. The train ride will be full of joy, sorrow, fantasy, expectations, hellos, goodbyes, and farewells. Success consists of having good relationships with all passengers, requiring that we give the best of ourselves. The mystery to everyone is we do not know which station we ourselves will step down. So we must live in the best way, love, forgive, and offer the best of who we are. It is very important to do this, because when the time comes for us to step down and leave our seat empty, we should be behind beautiful memories for those who will continue to travel on this train of life. I wish you a joyful journey on the train of life. Reach success, give lots of love. More importantly, thank God for the journey. Lastly, I love you for being one of the passengers on my train, Mel. Rest in peace, my friend. I love you. Thank you for everybody for coming today. Thank you, Rabbi.
And lastly, Carol.
So I've only known Mel about 10 years through his dating Irene. Before Irene had a stroke, we were friends, but not super close. After the stroke, we became besties through our mutual love of Irene. I had heard many Mel stories at this point and had a vision of a macho man who had loved his family, but perhaps was not the most sensitive guy. Boy, was I wrong. The Mel that stood by Irene after her stroke was loving and devoted in a way I did not expect. They weren't married, but he treated her like a cherished wife, bringing flowers and little treats to make her smile. Every one of her aides loved him because Irene would light up when he came into the room. Mel was the glue that held Irene together after the stroke and brought such joy and light into her life. While her ability to speak was compromised in so many ways, she was always able to say Mel. I believe his love gave her the strength to survive and still find happy moments among the pains of day-to-day living. Mel the Mensch. No one would have faulted him to walk away, but that's not who he was. Over the last week, I've had an opportunity to connect with many of Mel's friends, and I am so impressed that he maintained lifelong friendships with a group of guys he grew up with. 85 years of friendship. Who has that? Good guys. And Mel was a good guy. I should not have been so surprised about his devotion to Irene. I'll bet his friends weren't. And it's with heavy hearts that we say goodbye today to one of the good ones. Mel, your name will forever be a blessing. You will be sorely missed. Thanks.
Unscripted, but I appreciate more of these than I like to admit, and to see multi-generational, deep, caring friendships for someone who's 91 at this stage is really quite touching and moving, and a testament to Mel. It's an honor to have learned of him and his impact in this way. It is with these thoughts and memories and devotions in mind that we move to the central prayer of a Jewish memorial service, El Malei Rachamim, which asks that Mel's soul be granted true rest on the wings of God's divine presence in its warm embrace. I invite you, if you're physically comfortable to do so, to rise. I'll read it first in English, followed by chanting in the Hebrew. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as the resplendence of the firmament to the soul of Melvin Edelstein, who has gone to his eternal home. For charity has been donated in remembrance of his soul. May his place of rest be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore may the All-Merciful One shelter him with the cover of God's wings forever, and bind his soul in the bond of life. Adonai is his heritage. May he rest in his resting place in peace, and let us say, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei HaShechina, B'malot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kizohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Moshe ben Yisrael, Shehalach le'olamo, Ba'avor shenadvu tzadaka, Ba'ad hazkarat nishmato, B'gan eden dehe menuchato, Lachen bal harachamim yasti rehu b'seiter kenafav le'olamim, V'yitzror b'itzror hachayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, V'yanuach al mishkavo b'shalom, V'nomar, Amen. Please be seated. Our formal time together here at the chapel is drawing to a close. Those of us who are traveling to the cemetery, we'll make our way immediately following to Locustwood Memorial Park on Route 70 for interment. Following interment, family and friends are welcome to Maggiano's at the Cherry Hill Mall for a meal and visits of consolation. The family also requests that donations in lieu of flowers please be made to one of a couple of places, to either the American Legion in Gibbsboro, where Mel was a longtime proud member, to the Katz Jewish Community Center in Cherry Hill, which you've heard a fair amount about his presence there today, or to the charity of your choice. Gentlemen?